in 1946 Swiss families who wanted to express their gratitude for having spared by the war. Decided to offer to Initiative of Change, which was then known as Moral Rearmament, a place where European people could meet, especially French and German. And they found this place, and they spent many months just to put it into shape, because it was used by the refugees during the war by the Swiss government. And it was part of an attempt by Dr. Frank Buchmann, an American, who launched this idea to make the people of Europe meet again and support the big ideas which were running around the places, with the people, with change in the people on the ground. So it was a place, it's one of the places where these people started to meet, started to talk, and on the basis of the values of Initiative of Change, which is honesty, purity, unselfishness, and love, in as absolute as possible, each one is called to review his conscience and then take a decision what could be different in my life. So for the French and the German, it was difficult.
Why?
Because they had been fighting each other, and the war was only ended up in 45, and there they found themselves in 46.
So they were still.
And CAUX, there is a special spirit, as everybody tries to be different. Because somebody said that peace, it's people becoming different. So slowly, these French and German, in the framework of World Conference, because they were Dutch, they were Americans, they were Asians, begin to start to meet together. And my mother-in-law, who was a resistance fighter during the war, and had been a member of the Constituante in France in 1946, she was invited by a friend of mine. So she came to CAUX and to discover what was behind this idea. Many statesmen in Europe and many other people felt the need to rebuild Europe with Germany and not to humiliate Germany again as we did in 1919. And because 1919 we humiliated the Germans and they were kept low, and then Hitler took over power. And the message she gave in CAUX, which was, I asked the Germans for my forgiveness. She never pointed her finger to the Germans. And this is a secret of CAUX. Change starts when you begin to point your finger at yourself, where you must make the first step. And there were some young Germans when she spoke in CAUX who said, if she speaks of what the Germans have done to France, we have some story of what the French did to Germany. And her speech was so different that the young German wanted to meet her. And her speech was always the same. I ask forgiveness for my hatred. And the Germans were so surprised.
Forgiveness for my hatred.
Yeah, for my hatred. And the Germans were so surprised that the French woman would not point a finger, you have done that, but she said,
no, I have a problem. I have hate.
And when she came to Berlin with Berlin, we went to Berlin with this, she saw the ladies picking up the stones in Berlin, picking of the ruins, in order to earn some money to feed up the kids, which they had from the Russian troops coming. And my mother-in-law said, I was really ashamed, because as a woman and as a mother, I had wished the drama I saw in front of my eyes. I had wished this misery and these destructions, and I was ashamed of myself. And my mother-in-law said very simply, I ask you for my forgiveness for my hatred.
Of my hatred, yeah.
And then she committed herself to fight for this healing of hatred for the rest of her life. She has done it in different. She went to India. She went to many places, and her real conviction was that hatred will destroy the world.
Oneself and then the world, yeah.
Hatred will destroy the world between people.
Yeah. So what is the problem today? Like this is what happened after the Second World War. What is happening today? What is this association trying to do?
Yeah, this place we moved on with many people. Every year, hundreds of people are coming. When I arrived in CAUX in September '51, invited by someone, there were 1,400 people in the place.
Okay, when was that?
51.
Oh, 1951. Okay.
Then our work started also to expand. We were involved in the independence of the African nations. We also welcomed the first Japanese official delegation to leave Japan, who decided to take a trip in the world to ask forgiveness for what they have done. And they came through Europe, and they came to this place. And so our work is a worldwide work. They have been working in 40 different countries, or even more. So sometimes delegations came to CAUX, sometimes individuals, but always at the heart of the problems of the day. We had, when there was a problem in Cyprus, we had many people from Cyprus who came to CAUX. And this Cypriots started a program to try to reconcile Greek Cypriots.
Okay.
And
enemies, former enemies.
I'm afraid it didn't work as well as they were hoping so.
Wow.
And for instance, for Tunisia, when there was a problem of independence in the 60s and so on, some friends of mine met in Paris a Tunisian who was one of the leaders of the resistance, and they invited him to come to CAUX. So they drove him from Paris to CAUX, and this fellow arrived at CAUX and he received a letter from his mother saying, "I pray for your stay, and I pray that God curse the French from the earth." He said, "You can continue to pray for me, but you can also pray for some French, because I met French people who are very different from what I knew." And he was freed from his bitterness against the French. And when he went back to Paris, he and a Frenchman who also had been to CAUX worked together that during the negotiations, when there were difficult points, they would retire, discuss together, find a solution and propose it.
To get rid of the
So
hate.
Tunisian, just to propose it because it was difficult. So the Tunisia found its independence without a bloody war like in Algeria. Because there were this teamwork between French and German in the negotiations. And when there was tensions, when the French was saying, they would get out and then they would discuss and they would come back to the conference. And this is what we feel is. And so we have been working in different fields.
Do you think that maybe the Iraqis and Libyans and Syrians and Ukrainians should be invited to take these courses, so
we have Ukrainians coming to this conference, and 3 of them are here.
Oh, all right, wonderful.
And the 4th one, the Roman and two.
Yes.
When the wall fell down, we were asked in CAUX to create. We were asked to create courses to help young people from the Central Europe or Eastern Europe to become responsible. And we had at that time, every summer, a week of training for responsibility and leadership in CAUX. And these people transferred what they had learned in CAUX in their own countries. So they're still working very hard, but of course it takes time. And you can't impose people to come. We invite people to come. If they don't want to come, we're not going to take an army to bring them.
Or to get rid of the hatred, because it's something that has to be worked from within.
Absolutely.
Each individual, you have to be ready for it. You cannot legislate somebody. I legislate that you shall not feel any more hate. But if that's what you feel, that's what you feel. But this group is trying to change that feeling of hate and converting it into humanity, love thy fellow human being, which most religions are basically saying the
Well,
same thing.
I think it actually, initiative of change is nothing new.
Yeah.
It's a new dynamic to old truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And trying to put everybody at work to do their part in changing the world.
Mm-hmm. Much, thank you for your intervention here, and
Well,
we'll see
anyway.
if somebody has an ear to listen.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Oh, you're
Thank
welcome. I'm glad to meet you.
Now, there's another thing happening actually, is that the internet, of course, actually is pursuing another transformation, another transition, if you like. And that might actually support this paradigm shift, because it is based on a new way of thinking about organization and leadership, which is rooted in nature, as I just mentioned. We see that governance from the top down is confronted with governance from the bottom up. But how do you actually realize that? How do you make governance from the bottom up actually happen? And the traction between these two types of governance is not really, and it's not really there. And what we've tried to do, we've worked on a way to actually make governance from the bottom up happen and more credible. So it's time to look into a clean mirror, as we would say, and foster a developmental view of society. So we created a societal medium that facilitates the expression of human organizations throughout society, which means it doesn't just focus on nation states, but it also focuses on the private and the public institutions of which nation states are made up. And we developed that mirror in the shape of chartleaders.com. On the left, you see help improve society by rating nations, organizations, and leaders. And the idea is not to make a 360 assessment of leaders, because that's what human resource managers do, but to use the words of Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize winner that looked at the psychology of decision making, to use the feelings and the impressions of people to make sense of how society, of where society is rather, in its development, and how the leaders kind of fit with that particular stage of development, whether it concerns a nation state, an organization, or any other form of organization.
The Chart Leaders community helps you make sense of society. It helps you chart your role in society. It helps you chart the role of peers. It also helps you chart the role of national leaders, the role of business leaders. It even helps you chart the role of managers and players in sports. But it does more than that. It helps you chart the needs of society. I mean the needs of your country, the needs of your business organizations, and even the needs of sports teams. So sign up and chart a leader now. Remember, only together we create society.
Now, we've got 3 of these brief 1-minute videos, and it shows that these videos help best to motivate people to use the system.
How will chart leaders help you? First, you might chart your comfort zone, so recruiters can identify where you'd fit in best. Improve your chances by inviting friends to add their opinion. This way you create a more credible you, not just when it concerns you, but also when evaluating the fit of leaders that affect you favorably or unfavorably. You might be triggered by an article in a newspaper or magazine. Rather than just sharing this article, Chart Leaders helps you add value first by charting the leaders and organizations discussed. Chart Leaders shows you each day which leaders are being charted so you can chart them too. Local and global events might trigger you to add or chart leaders and organizations. This way, Chart Leaders helps you make sense of elections, business developments, organizational successes, and hiccups. In all, use Chart Leaders to bring leaders and organizations to the attention of other chart leaders and mobilize the force of public opinion. As a result, you'll help society function better fundamentally, ensuring the right leaders everywhere. So sign up and chart a leader now. Remember, only together we create society.
So first, who and what will you be voting for? So now millions of people can start thinking about who and what they will be voting for. Second, to identify the role of leaders. Identify what you think the natural role of leaders is, including your role. And see what organizations are up to. Evaluate where an organization is in its development. And I mean, not just an organization, any organization. The nation state, organizations, and private and public institutions. An NGO. And evaluate what's written in the press. Now you can imagine about 80% of all the articles, and I'm guessing here, right? Don't quote me on the 80%, is about people and is about, let's say, organizations. Now wouldn't it be great for journalists to have their readers assess the leaders and the people discussed in this paper and the organization discussed in this paper, not assess, but at least to endorse them. I think he is a this, or he is a that, or she is this and that, and this is what, this is a stage of development where this organization, this nation is in. So that's also what this application will help you, will help its users in. Now, because we have just started, I mean a few days, and I've been mainly working it from Belgium and the Netherlands because that's where it's based. There are not a lot of people that have looked in other countries at these leaders. So you see there mainly our perspective of leaders and organizations, but it's not our priority, or not your priority necessarily. So why I'm here? To tell you about the message, hoping that you tell other people about the message so that people start using it. Because if they start using it, and we get a lot of people giving their opinions anonymously, then you get a perspective of society which is developmental, which is not in the sense of that's bad and that's good, or I don't like that. You can do that. Yes, you can. At every chart, every profile, you can give comments. But if you give comments about Juncker being a grower and not fitting with Europe, then at least it is more informed. It's not just out of the blue. Well, I believe he is a grower and he doesn't fit with the priorities and the stage of development of Europe right now. So that, that is a much more valuable comment than just any comment out of the blue on Twitter. You see what I mean?
Hi, do you have an opinion? If you want to register it, go to nowpolling.ca right now, and you can register whatever kind of opinion you would like. And if you don't see it, you can scroll to the bottom of the page and you can put your own question down and poll yourself. Yay! What a good idea.
I always tell my children that they are the first generation of Europeans that do not hear war stories from their father.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. It says that I start in the name of Allah, who is most merciful and most beneficent.
I'm interested in creating this World Peace Forum, and together with a large number of friends we've been able to run 8 forums now in a row. So this was the 8th World Peace Forum in consecutive years. I'm doing this because I have 7 children. And with my wife we've raised these 7 children very luckily in times of peace. And I know from my father, who was a German during the Second World War, that peace is nothing granted, that we can take for granted. Peace is something we have to work on. My father, as I said, was young, too young to fight in the Second World War, but old enough to carry out dead bodies of basements in his home.
How is the Peace Forum gonna prevent from wars?
Well, the Peace Forum at least wants to keep alive the danger of war existing and the danger of social conflicts and other conflicts existing. And we want to do 2 things. What we study at the Peace Forum is preventive measures. What can be done to prevent conflicts? So where are potential conflicts?
तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्.
The second part we want to study at the forum is once a conflict has taken place, once a war has taken place, what can be done afterwards to reconcile, to foster forgiveness, to foster a process of reintegration of people.
Has it been successful in a way, or?
I think the German-French integration, and I'm using the word integration on purpose, has been a model for the rest of the world, for any other region of conflict and war. If you think about it, our vice president here at the foundation is a Frenchman. His father was paid for by his government to kill my father and my uncles. My father, a German, was paid for by my German government to kill my friend's Pierre's father and uncles. Today, this Frenchman and this German men run this peace foundation together. So the German-French integration since World War II, a reconciliation process, forgiveness process, and friendship. So today I think it's a great example. That's why we set our forum here until today, and we've called our foundation the Schengen Peace Foundation, which organizes this World Peace Forum. Schengen is this place which is symbolic for this European integration.
Now, it's wonderful that you're doing all this stuff, and yet war prevails. We're still having sporadic wars here in Europe as well as third world countries. Not to diminish what you're doing, but to point out that we haven't conquered peace. What is one of the recommendations from this forum to continue doing in order to achieve peace, if it's ever possible?
Let me tell you my first answer, yes, it is possible. Peace is possible. Peace in the entire world is possible. Why am I so sure in saying this? Because many people have declared us dreamers and have declared us crazy people who spend their time discussing peace, which is an utopia, but it is not. And this is the proof that it is not. Schengen is the proof it is not. The European integration, for me, is the proof that peace is absolutely possible. In Central Western Europe, we are now celebrating 69 years of peace. This is the longest peace period in the history of humankind in Europe. Never has Europe lived 69 years of peace. And this is the result of putting together all these countries into a system where they're so intermingled they cannot be torn apart again. And this is what happened. Now, here's our story. Our idea of the Schengen Peace Foundation is to bring this spirit of Schengen, the spirit of integration of people, doing away with borders, creating a new togetherness of nations into the rest of the world regions. We don't want to copy and paste the Schengen Treaty, which is a treaty that allows free movement of people throughout Europe and has done away with the borders within Europe. We cannot copy-paste it, but we can take the idea of integration to the rest of the world regions. We take the spirit of Schengen, as we call it, to the rest of the world regions. And the other world regions do not have the baggage we have here in Europe. We have 3,000 years of heavy, heavy baggage of hatred, war, killings, terror. Other world regions have much less baggage. So if it's possible, it was possible in Europe, it must be possible in the rest of the world. That's why I'm 100% convinced, and nobody can tell me the contrary. Peace is possible.
Yes, you have to believe in a dream, otherwise it will never happen.
And I firmly believe.
And you have to be.
And I think I have the proof.
Yes, yes. So some people think that the integration in Europe is possible, but it'll be more difficult to integrate the whole world.
Well,
so peace between France and Germany has been achieved. But how about in the Balkans, and how about in Africa, and how about in other countries? Are you intending to have this experiment globally, not just within European countries?
Yes. We've built up what we have now and what we've been able to experience with us for the last 8 years, from something very small. A few of the people who were here this year were at the first World Peace Forum, which was a one-day conference here in Schengen on a Saturday afternoon. It has now become a 4 or 5 day conference with many, many hundreds of people from all over the world. And now I think it is time that we go out into the world with this message and with this group of people, with this little think tank of conflict resolution and reconciliation processes. We do want to take this with your help, with the help of everybody here in the room, we want to take this to the world and bring the message to the other regions of the world.
We pray that Thou wilt accept of our meager efforts here to promote peace, tranquility, respect and love among all Thy children.
But I want to say something also on your question of, is peace really transportable from Europe into other regions? Is world union possible? Jean Monnet is one of the 6 founding fathers of the European Union. Jean Monnet, together with other gentlemen from France, Italy, Luxembourg, Germany and Belgium, right after the war, they said we need to integrate Europe, we need to integrate the Germans, we cannot leave them out. Europe is only possible with Germany. So we need to look the enemy into the face and reconcile and bring them all to the table. The vision we have of an integration of all European countries can only be the first step of a worldwide integration of all nations. This is not me, I'm just repeating, I'm citing Jean Monnet's last sentence of his memoirs. So the founding fathers of Europe, they weren't thinking about uniting Europe. They were thinking about uniting the world. And they said the first step, we got to show the rest of the world that we can do it, we can get our act together in Europe.
So the getting together of a group of nations is wonderful because you perhaps achieve some equalization between those nations. However, there is the danger that by forming this small club, you're leaving some other nations out. I'm thinking of the G7 or G8, where the most powerful nations get together and say, we make the decisions, but the rest of the world is out of that decision making. So is it that there is some danger of this European Union becoming detrimental for other countries that are not part of the European Union?
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And I would go a step further. I would say the European Union has no right and makes no sense to exist if it stays like it is today. I think the European Union cannot be this club of chic European nations celebrating itself and celebrating these almost 70 years of peace. I think Europe has to break open. Europe has to forget about his borders towards the south. We need to reintegrate the Mediterranean. We need to integrate Africa, the Arab world, and we need to open Europe to the rest of the world. It cannot stay an elite club.
Great.
I represent the first generation of Europeans in the history of this continent that cannot tell war stories to their children.
And celebrate peace or
make peace. Make peace.
Museums of
peace and not of war.
That's right, because otherwise we're glorifying past wrongs.
Yes, sir.
And with all respect to veterans that suffered and fought for ideas that may or may not have been right, we have to teach children that the heroism isn't refusing to fight rather than participate.
Bravo.
in war.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
Well, I wish the best to your association and to your project, and thank you for inviting us here.
Thank you so much for coming.